Hello, this is my presentation on the radio pirates and what effect they've had in the celebrity culture. The content is the start of the BBC, problems that occurred, the radio pirates, the modern DJs of our time, social networking sites, and what effect it has had on the radio industry. The BBC. Sir John Reith was a Scottish broadcasting executive who established the tradition of independent public service broadcasting in the UK. In 1922 he was employed by the BBC as general manager, and in 1927 he was employed as the first Director General of the BBC, created under the Royal Charter. He wanted to educate his listeners, and his beliefs were to educate, inform and entertain. He did not believe in any entertainment on a Sunday, which became a problem for the BBC because the audience wanted to hear more popular music. And this is something that they were not hearing from the BBC. So what was about to happen was a change, and a change that would change the way we saw radio presenters and radio stations forever. And this is from the Radio Pirates. The rise to the pirates. Popular music was at the heart of these ships, and that's what they wanted to do. They played music 24 hours a day. And they aimed it at a different audience. It wasn't, as the BBC was aiming it at more of a middle class, older generation. This was purely more for the younger generation, so the teenagers, which was weird because they weren't used to something based for them. There were lots of different pirate ships, such as Radio Caroline, Radio Luxembourg, Radio London, and Radio Atlanta. And this picture shows the boats. So there's Caroline, there's Luxembourg, there's London, and there's Atlanta. But the most famous boat would probably be Radio Caroline, as it had the most amount of listeners. Radio Caroline was founded in 1964 by Ronan O'Reilly and was one of the most popular ships, especially when it joined with Radio Atlanta. When they became together, they had about 9 million listeners. But the main reason for them to be so popular were the DJs that were on board. So the DJs on Radio Caroline were Johnny Walker, Keith Skews, Tony Blackburn, and Simon D. Here's a picture of them. Tony Blackburn, as you can see. Yeah. Famous DJs, literally, overnight, they became superstars, they became huge. And some of the DJs became even more popular and even more famous than the pop stars whose music they were playing. And this was just crazy to see because like no one was used to it, and especially it's a radio DJ. You know, they've never seen any fame come from a radio DJ. So it was all quite exciting. A great example to show is Simon D. Simon D is just a great example because he started as nothing and then turned into a huge, huge superstar. And it's different from today's world because he worked really hard and had amazing talent. In 1964, Simon D joined Radio Caroline, and on the 28th of March, his voice was the first live voice to be heard on the station. He had also been described as the James Bond of radio, and here it says, this was the first time anyone saw a radio presenter having so much fame. It was changing the way people would look at radio, with having thousands of fans. He literally had the biggest fan following. After the radio pirates were outlawed by Act of Parliament, the pirate DJs became famous due to hard work and talent, which, like I said before, is crazy because nowadays you get there because you're already famous, it's who you know, it's not about talent. But all of this changed the way we saw radio forever. And after the pirates went, BBC changed forever. They ended up hiring pirates from the ships, and Radio 1 was created, and this was in response to the popularity of offshore pirate radio stations, such as Radio Caroline. Radio 1 was launched and aired at 7 AM on Saturday, 30th of September 1967. With this came fame for the DJs. The first DJ to broadcast on the new station was Tony Blackburn, who was first heard on Radio Caroline, and he was also on Radio London. And because of his fame and a great fan following, it won him a place on Radio 1's breakfast show, which was the prime show. As well as this, Simon D also had a job on radio, BBC. And this is where another huge change happened, because lots of people were seeing these men, the celebrities, just by sitting there having fun, all of that, and lots of people wanted to be them, aspired to be them, which was new because no one really thought, oh, radio DJs. So this is where a birth of some of the greatest DJs were born, such as Chris Evans, Chris Moyles and Fearne Cotton. Chris Evans came into radio purely from hard work and perseverance. He conquered the ladder on the way to stardom, which was great. It could be said that he's a modern version of Simon D, but learnt from Simon D's mistakes. Well, to a certain level he did. Chris Evans took the idea of celebrity to another level, and it could be said that he's one of the most influential people in the radio industry. And he has the persona of a celebrity. And he's one of the richest men in Britain, as well as a household name. As well as this, we have... Chris Evans has a following of around 986,675 followers on his Twitter, which is an impressive amount. Now on to Fearne Cotton. Fearne Cotton is arguably our modern day version of a celebrity who is a radio presenter, but she started in the radio. She didn't go into radio first, she started off as television, which can be said, does that make her more of a celebrity because she's being seen as well as heard? So she's more in the public eye. But the good question to ask is, what even is a celebrity? Does that make her a celebrity because she's been on both television and radio? And if we look at the start of celebrity culture, it's clear that there is an order. It's like replacing the new for the old, getting new people and all of that. And this, in today's version, also as this, Fearne Cotton has a blog that updates her fans on lots of different topics, as well as sharing facts about Radio 1's show. And Fearne Cotton has an even more impressive figure of Twitter followers, with a total of 3,991,477 viewers, which is just mind-boggling. Yeah. But like, what makes them celebrities? Is it being seen, being heard, being rich? You know, it's just a good question to ask, because does anyone actually really know? In today's world, we have like the pecking order, swapping the new for the old. And this is like Nick Grimshaw takes over from Chris Moyles on Radio 1. There's Chris Moyles. And there's Nick Grimshaw. Chris Evans was getting listeners over the age of 30, so this obviously had to change. So Nick Grimshaw took over, and he's younger. He was working already on T4, so he was already a little bit of a celebrity with the younger generation. So also the question is, did he start radio already as a celebrity? Because he had a following of fans, and he was already hanging out with celebrities. So that's another thing to look at. But is it getting out of hand? Is celebrity culture getting out of hand, like in DJs? Like, why are radio DJs becoming so famous? Is it due to social networking sites? Or maybe it's because of the new generation being obsessed with celebrities. Here is a graph that shows the type of people who, like the ages of people who use social networking sites. So this is 15 to 24-year-olds, and they're all the way up there. So they're all using social networking sites, and with radio stations using Facebook, Twitter, blogs to promote their shows. You know, it just shows what audience they're basing it at. This one also shows why people go on social networking sites to see their friends, people you like, experts, online friends, brands, retailers, influential bloggers. Like, people you like could be Fearne Cotton, so it's 55% do that. The facts. Total number of Facebook users worldwide is 1.2 billion. And Twitter figures show around 500 million active users generating over 340 million tweets daily, which is a crazy amount. The total percentage of 18 to 24-year-olds who already use social media is 98%. And these facts as well, it's just crazy. But surely, like, if we didn't like the radio presenter, we wouldn't listen. So maybe it's not about celebrity, or we could just be listening to them because they're famous. Or it could be because everyone's talking about them and we feel like we have to listen and hear what's going on. So that's another question to ask. And all of these people here are Radio 1 DJs. So they all have the persona of being a celebrity, but are they celebrities? And that is the end of my presentation. Is there any questions? No? Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So do you think in the future that celebrities will be the star of the show for TV and radio, just all in all?
Yeah, because it's looking like at the moment lots more people are starting radio from have done television before.
Yeah.
So if that's happening, then they're going to eventually go hand in hand with celebrities.
Because of course radio and TV are very hand in hand as it is, and the celebrities will tighten the link there.
Yeah, I think especially with the younger generation who are becoming more and more obsessed with celebrities, then I think they're going to eventually have to do that to be a celebrity.
Do you think it's any kind of cause for concern? Or is it something
I think it is a cause for concern, because it's not showing you have talent. You know, at the beginning, as you can see from the Radio Pirates, they had talent. They got to where they were from being talented at what they did. Now, anyone could go on as long as you know the right people and you've been seen before and you look right, and you can get there.
Right.
But surely that shouldn't be the way we look at it. It should be based on talent and what you can do.
Greg James wasn't like that though, because he studied.
Greg James is different. He is different. But like, for instance, like Nick Grimshaw, he is good at what he does. He is a good radio presenter, but would he have got there without knowing who he knew, hanging out with who he knew, and started on television? Just an interesting question.
I was going to say, in your opinion, what do you think makes someone a celebrity?
In my opinion, I think a celebrity is someone who is being seen, who is being heard, who is rich, because they all go hand in hand. But I think it really depends how they've got there to call them a celebrity. Like, if they've just been given it on a plate, I just think you don't deserve to be a celebrity. If that makes sense. Any more questions? Okay, and here's my bibliography as well. But yeah, that's it.